Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. It's good to see you. You've seen the title, so at this stage you know more about today's reading than I do, since I speak to you from the recent alternate past. This is a general, timeless one, ideally designed for quite a large audience, so we won't get as specific as we would in a private booking, link down below. If most of what I'm saying feels like an answer to a question you've been living, take those tidbits with you and let a fellow traveller excavate the rest. If it's not your reading, there are playlists on my channel hub to randomise finding something else. Whilst it's true that a broken clock is right twice a day, I'm not sure that same clock is right 10 times within the hour. So trust yourself, above all, to know what's useful for you and what makes you feel more empowered for hearing it, no matter what your beliefs. While we're on beliefs, on this channel gendered terms are just a specificity of language to describe energetic tendencies and signatures, solar or lunar inclination in accordance with a hermetic law of polarity, and not any kind of socialisation to buy into wholesale or conflate with the identity or orientation of anyone described. Romantic and spiritual labels used are plucked from lengthy precedent predating any unfortunate trending controversies or engineered cyclical backlash. My dude, around these parts, we don't relinquish the complexity of our full histories. We trust ourselves cognitively to adapt what we consume and see what's healthy and long-term accurate. I'm legally obliged to say this is entertainment in quote marks and that I'm an occultist not qualified in unrelated disciplines to advise on physical and mental health, finances, legalities. You get the picture, you're in charge of you. All my readings are protected and warded by frankly magnificent beneficial forces, though I don't share my custom prep rituals on camera any more than I give out my address. I hope the reasoning behind that is obvious, but you can trust there are zero parasitic or adversarial influences permitted within 100 unseen paces of any signal we patch from the noise here today. So sit back, relax into the shape of your most luminous possible future self, cozy up to imaginal allies, and take in whatever it is you need to hear. If you do like it, this small channel with a big mission very much appreciates subscriptions, thoughtful comments, or donations in order to spread the word and keep the lights on. Now, let's tune that dial. Right, I'm whistling because we're using the Mandalorian deck. And we are also using the Tarot of the Divine and the archetype cards. All of these are available for readings privately in my shop, link down below. But you know that because you just heard the spiel. And your mystery word, as you know from the title, was query, which is a bit of a weird one because tarot is a query. Oh, I'm taking this ring off as well now. The gloves are off. That will become clear soon, I think. Right, so your archetype in the light is servant. And the light attribute is delight in serving others with a free and loving heart. Okay. And then your top Mando card that wanted to come out before all the others. Before all the others, excuse me, is the Ten of Wands. And the weapons forger type helmet, I think. It's been a while since I watched it. So there's some kind of burden in this. There is servitude, but where there's like too much of an energy expenditure. Someone's running themselves ragged, someone's burning out. Someone enjoys the acts of service, but there's too much to carry. And it's leaving them defensive with it being this particular deck, right? Or it's leaving them having to forge a new way of moving through the world. Because I think of the forger with that particular style of helmet, right? Not the forger, not blacksmith either, but the person who makes swords, oh my... It's been a long day, guys. We'll come back to these, I think, but I'm good with the archetypes because I think that's you. Is there anyone else involved? Yes, right, so I'll put these to the side for now. And then the first of your cards is the Six of Wands. I think the query at the heart of this is whether you're being duly compensated for the services you provide and the extent to which your energy is expended doing those things in myriad different ways. So if you're a fellow reader, you might have people around you who understand that there is a certain amount of like physical energy in either getting to a reading or producing, you know, video or still readings or whatever, and that there's a certain amount of hours involved. But they might not realise that there's also the branding, there's also the hosting, there's also the emotional energy of getting things across to people who might be in crisis. Excuse me, confirmation. There's also the spiritual protection energy that you have to do before you do any kind of reading. There's also the sort of extra spiritual energy expenditure, or that feels like the wrong way to put it, but there's that kind of like communion with spirit type energy that is also quite, like, a lot of it in a day is very tiring. I spoke about this a couple of readings ago when I talked about why I took a bit of time away from the channel, but it is like a really demanding job, and that's just one example. You could be in some other kind of service, whether that be just socially or in a sort of career thing like nursing or care work, or even providing content that's like instructional or informational or something. There's something here where you're successful in delivering the information that you've been giving, and you are indeed delighting in serving these other people, but it's like undervalued or it's burdensome. And your question is, like, not your question, but the universe's query to you is, are you being compensated? Is there a parade for your efforts? Are you being celebrated as like the archetypal warrior returning home? Or is it in fact that because of whatever industry you work in, or because of the amount of extra that you put in after work, some of you are teachers and that's relevant, it's almost like that's not really seen because it's not associated with what you do to like put in all these extra hours, but you are. Or that there's like an energy, again, speaking about my own circumstances might be relevant with this, but there's like maybe a limitation on your personal energy for some reason, and I'm getting that the people around you don't necessarily see the energy management that you have to do to just keep afloat in terms of being able to offer a certain service. Now that could be, as I say, career, or it could just be like emotional labour. Let's get 5. Oh! Okay, it's a weird channel. For some reason, I'm getting the Spice Girls, and it's not even a particularly popular song, but when I was 10, I was obsessed with them, so I know all the lyrics. And it's that get down, get deeper and down, get down, get deeper and down, and then someone goes Saturday night. So there might be something to do with working Saturdays, working weekends when you shouldn't have to. Or get down, get deeper and down is giving like doing deep emotional work with people. Maybe like psychotherapeutic work, or like I say, spiritual service, you know, whether that be divination or something else. Anyway, yeah, so there's a lot. This is interesting as a layout as well, right? I have like an undercurrent of the reading. I have a past, present, future in the middle of it. And then I often have like what I used to call the rainbow over the reading, or the overarching theme. Your overarcher has come out as 3 cards, which tells me that even in the sky, there's a lot of weight pushing down, there's a lot of burden. It's really echoing this 10 of Wands. There's a lot on this that other people don't see. They see the one rainbow, not the fact that there's all these different colours in it, that are, like, that's a heavy amount of information for us to process, if that makes any kind of sense. Rainbows might be a thing for you, that might be why I'm saying that. Or In Rainbows, the Radiohead album, for some of you, is coming through. Don't know whether you've been listening to it or whatever. Any confirmation like that, just pop it in the comments that I'm right. It really helps me out. Yeah, but it's weird to have 3 at the top. So, okay, let's go underground. Let's go what's beneath all this. What's the undercurrent of it all? We've got 2 of Swords in reverse. We've got a lot of reversals here, guys. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just notable, because reversals to me are a bit like an astrological retrograde, where it's saying, hey, pay attention. This is an emergent need, or this is something to examine a bit more deeply and sit with a bit more thoroughly. And we are currently in a Mercury retrograde, I think, by the time this goes out. So again, there's that attention to Mercury, and sometimes Mercury will demand that attention by breaking all the systems around you and ensuring that your comms don't get through, as is the sort of archetypal, oh no, it's Mercury retrograde. But that's not really fair on Mercury retrograde, because a retrograde is a perception from our perspective. It's not an objective truth. It's to do with the way that we move, that we see these orbits happening differently, and it looks like things station, or it looks like things go backwards because we're on Earth, right? And because of the way that we are. So actually, when Mercury's in retrograde, he's not going backwards and causing havoc. He's in a position from our perception where we have to pay attention to the fact that he looks like he's moving differently, which is Mercury's way of being like, hey, archetypally, this is quite important right now, yeah? And sometimes people have to be pushed into that. And then sometimes people will just go, Mercury retrograde, I will sit with Mercury in a mythological archetypal sense. You know, we're not talking about prescriptive or predictive or presumptive here. We're not talking about determinism. We're speaking about what is it within this time period that is something you have to sit with extra. So when I see a lot of reversals with Mercury blessing side, love Mercury, but you know, to use that kind of example, we're looking at cards where you need to spend more time with this. You need to give it more attention than if it was in the upright. In many cases, the meaning is completely different. In some cases, it's not, but it's always asking, can you please sit with me? Can you please stop for a moment in all of this burden, in all of this service, in all of this energy expenditure, and really hone in on what we're trying to say, yeah? Which is why I like using reversals. It's not just another 78 meanings, it's a retrograde of meaning. It's a peacetime. It's a time to contemplate that particular card in a deeper way. So, Two of Swords reverse for the undercurrent. There's a decision not being made here, and I think it's possibly in relation to you providing this service, or being in service, or feeling like you've been put in a position of servitude which you wouldn't necessarily have chosen, or the labour of that servitude is greater than the value that you thought you'd be bringing to it and the energy that you thought you'd have to put into it. Excuse me, throat chakra, because that's hits home for me. And also with Get Down, Get Deeper and Down, we're looking more at the undercurrent energy. So that Two of Swords is important, maybe more important than the overarching. The weight of the overarching is important because it's echoing that 10 of Wands, but the actual meaning of the undercurrent is coming through more because of that song channeled. And I know it's a naff channel, but whatever. It's the way my brain works, right? So this decision, I think, is maybe what you've come to the interwebs, to the information superhighway, to get a reading about in some way. I think my sense is that you're on the information superhighway because you've come to an impasse because of the services rendered that are burning you out in some fashion. And it's like, what is rainbows for other people to you is kind of like, yes, that's lovely, but do you know the amount of colours in that? I feel bogged down. And I think your query, in the query reading, is going to be about which direction to move in. So let's look at your recent past. King of Wands reversed. There's an imbalance of power here. Again, that first reading might be relevant, partly because of the peacock figure. I think that might be you. If you go back to that first, I say first one, the first of my comeback readings, it was like 2 readings ago. What was the word for it? It was under beautiful, so look for the reading marked beautiful. But yeah, there's like somebody in charge that's sort of misusing their power here. And I think that they show off the fact that they've come back from the brink in some way, because this is like Firebird Phoenix type stuff. And they maybe like brag a little bit too much about that. Oh, I wanted to cover myself. That's okay. So I'm aware I'm wearing quite a transparent dress, right? But it's a very warm day here, and it was one of my nicer dresses. And I was feeling self-conscious about being on camera. But there's something here about like almost when this person is bragging about their evolution into whatever they are now, evolution if you're English, you're like feeling like you need to cover your chakras a bit, Like, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, never mind. I don't matter, I see. And maybe that's why you overgive in whatever this role is. That it's like someone around you is braggadocious. And I feel like you're not necessarily less highly achieving than them, but it's almost like in the wake of that, you feel like you need to take a step back and let them have the limelight, and it's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit like, cover yourself. Because I don't always do it when I sleep, but I don't usually cover myself in the real world, because I think, you know, when people go on about weight and things, it tends to be internalized ableism. So yeah, I just think maybe they've been a major factor in the decision of, I think, whether to stay or go in this role, or whether to like try to shift it a little bit into something else servicey. Again, reversals, man. It's not that the entire deck's reversed. So we've got the Star in reverse, blocked healing energy in the present, and also blocked innocence because of the girl holding the lamb, right? I think you came to whatever this is out of, fuck it, out of like a purity, a value system which was very childlike, which was very pure. That might be why I got a song channeled from when I was 10. Don't calculate my age, I beg of you. But yeah, there's something here about like you came to it with this pure, very Disney kind of a spirit of just wanting to help other people, wanting to be of use. Yeah, I'm hearing the Smoke song, to be of use now. Which I get, like, for some of you, and again, this is a general reading, get more specific with me by booking, right? But for some, the lyrics for to be of use are relevant, and those lyrics are, most of my fantasies are of making someone else come to be of use, right? So there's this like positioning of maybe overgiving in a relationship context or a sexual context, as well as whatever this is, or, you know, that relationships might be the main issue, where it's like overgiving in order to be seen as worthy of a certain thing. But actually you're already worthy, or you wouldn't be getting the star. And I think there's a need to heal from this, if it is a connection. There's a calling, because this is your first major coming up, right? There's a calling that's kind of at the root of it. I think if you're somebody who prides himself on providing a service in like a social or career context, you might also be someone who's overgiving in your relationships, and that needs attention, that needs the retrograde as well, right? And if it's not the main focus of your reading, this section of the reading is a heads up towards that you may be, you know, you're in maybe a turning point in terms of how you provide for others. But that turning point is also reflective of an inner dynamic of feeling burnt out in every area, really, and with every person, and not having sufficient boundaries. I should plug that there is a reading called Boundary Setter available at basic or extended tier in my shop, because that might be really useful. I think basic, we do like one main boundary that we can focus on and sort of work through, and how to set it and all the rest of it, and then in the extended you can have like 3, I think. But that might be something you want to look at, because it seems like maybe letting things run over you a little bit in whatever this first inclination towards servitude was is something that's also echoing in other facets of your life. Otherwise I wouldn't have got that Smog song. And it's a really sad song. I mean, they're a sad band. It's why I love them. Bill Callahan's just the saddest alive, and I adore him. But yeah, there's something about that, and there's something about the innocence with which you came to it almost being corrupted by the idea that you have to overgive, and therefore maybe even like the people or the workplaces that you sort of attract, because when you are overgiving, an opportunist will see you from a mile off, right? And I say that as someone whose twin flame was an opportunist. and was someone who very much took advantage of me overgiving for a very, very long time. We're talking years, before I had a discard from him, as is the pattern, and realised that that was emblematic of a greater pattern in my life, that I was giving and giving and giving and never actually received. I've forgotten to receive. And I think that might be the case here in a way, in every sense. Sorry if that's triggering. So near future, we've got the Three of Wands, again in reverse. Firstly, because of my associations with this card, work with your ancestors, they've been asking, am I right? If you've been like seeing signs of your granny or your great auntie Mary or, you know, whatever, going as far back as you want to and as magically inclined as you want to, there is a call here to get back into that kind of work. And if you don't know how to do ancestral work, firstly I would say a good place to learn about a bunch of stuff like that is Room Soup. I really advocate for everything Gordon's doing there. But maybe just starting with getting out a few family photos or objects associated with family however far back, and just sitting with them, lighting a candle, asking what it is that they want to tell you or present to you, and kind of waiting for stuff to come. Whether it comes in that conversation or whether it comes much later in your day that you have a realisation about something. Do give them offerings, you know, if you know that they like rum, pour them some out, you know, have a bit yourself from a different glass. If you know they love flowers, buy them some, right? Hello, Alice. But just make sure that there's like an exchange and that you're like, all right, I'm listening. Because I think, again, this might be why you were sent back to the beautiful reading, because there was something here about instincts. But you might have been so overburdened by whatever this service giving is that you've tapped out of your inner instinct. And part of your inner instinct, if you're on this particular reading, and if you found me somehow, is that you are gifted with ancestor communication or ancestor work in some way, or that your ancestors are trying to get in touch with you in a spiritual sense. And it's like, I mean, you can approach that as atheistically as you want to. You know, this could be like, I know that this person in my family had such and such a quality and that informs this, right? If you don't want to be magical about it, or if you feel a bit concerned with all that stuff, you don't have to do it that way. But there's some cognizance, some awareness, some intel coming in from those you were related to, whatever your relationship with them was, whether they were problematic or not. There's a message there. So that's before we even get into the real meaning. There's a need to plan and to do things step by step here. I mean, it's a ladder of bones, which, yes, ancestral stuff, but it's also like, take it one bit at a time. And I think in a way there's a pressure, additionally to all these other pressures, that you're putting yourself under to choose whether to pursue the path that you're on or whether to go to something that feels a little bit easier. There may also, because you've got the Mando deck, be an element of protecting someone younger or more vulnerable, or perceived as more vulnerable than you, whether or not they are, because Grogu, right? But there's that dynamic of the Mandalorian sort of looking after and protecting this like sacred baby in a way. So you could literally be in childcare, or it could be more that there is a spirit in something you're doing of protecting the innocent or helping out quite innocent souls, or initiating somebody into a particular way of life in a safe way, or something like that. And if it's a relationship reading primarily, and you don't identify with all that, there's a bit of parentification going on here, where maybe you're taking care of a partner's well-being in a way that is enabling a self-infantilization coming from them. So I'm sorry to be the one who points that out. It's really not always ideal to learn these things. But yeah, that's what's coming through. I think you're losing track of time with this stuff as well, because I lost that then. So your rainbow, or your overarching theme, is Page of Cups, Ten of Cups, and the Empress, all reversed, but we'll view them upright so you get an idea of imagery. Empress in the upright is giving Mary for this deck. And the roses might be significant. If you haven't seen my Marian chant video, it's from way back, but I posted it on Yule a couple of years ago, and it's the Theotokos and the prayer to Mary backwards a certain number of times. Not because we're blasphemous, not because of anything devilish, but because recitation in a backwards way was part of cunning praxis, in terms of like embodying a particular energy whilst codifying it to be usable in public, but also in terms of this idea of retrograde and of sitting with something more deeply and going backwards and retracing one's steps in relationship to a thing. So it might be really useful to you to go back and look for that video. I think it has a black screen. It might be the only one on my channel that does. And just listen a few cycles to that. It's just my voice saying something in backwards. It sounds like something out of Twin Peaks, but notice what changes in your body and mind as you listen, because there is this like Marian undercurrent, and that doesn't have to be that you are Abrahamic in your inclinations. It's a universal energy. It's just embodied archetypally by Mary, so it's a really useful thing to tap into. But the Marian burden, or the Marian in retrograde as a weight over the reading, again implies like mothering someone, however you gender identify, like nurturing someone but also kind of raising them. And I just heard, I'm not here to raise you. You might have come to a tipping point with somebody where you're like, I'm not your ma, I can't do your emotional work for you, is what I'm hearing. There might be some context, work related or not, where you're like Marian-splaining someone's shadow work, or how they seek help, or what kind of work they have to do on themselves to get out of a situation which very clearly is, to you, they're doing, that they perceive as being external. It's almost like you're in the deep explanations of how it is that they get themselves out of a particular mess. You're actually providing a lot of extra emotional labour, because you're informationally breaking down a process that is potentially re-traumatizing for you to explain, but also has a lot of steps to it, and is like, you know, you're not an instructional class on how someone gets their shit together, is what I want to say, or how someone grows up. Wow. So if you are in a caregiving role with someone vulnerable, this might not be talking about them, it might be a colleague or something, but it's I'm not here to raise you, I'm not here to do your shadow work for you. Maybe it's a particular person you're working for or alongside, or maybe it's a friend, but there's like no boundary with that person, so you're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, it's like you're doing all their stuff for them and taking care of your own, but you're almost forgetting your own. 10 of Cups reversed, you're definitely forgetting your own happiness, right? And in this one, it's the Little Mermaid, so there's something here about giving up your own voice and your own expression of who you are to facilitate a process where you're gambling on somebody else. You're like sacrificing being able to speak on something in order to receive love. Excuse me, confirmation. I do apologise. If the relationship stuff resonates, you might be in a position where you had to sort of deny some of who you were in order to even get a foot in the door with somebody who, in the end, doesn't give that much back now. But you're kind of in that pattern of self-denial already. So you can't just suddenly come out midway through the relationship and be like, hey, actually I'm really interested in this thing, or actually I think this, or actually my boundaries are here. Because it's almost like a precedent has been set away from that already. And it's a denial of your own happiness to try to pursue happiness through the approval of someone who in the end doesn't understand you in your authenticity. Sorry. Yikes. I'm getting blurry vision with that. So it's like part of this whole difficulty in the decision and not knowing where you're going is that in a way you haven't self-expressed for a while because you've been trying to be where other people are, up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun. And you've sacrificed your gift, I want to say, to be part of that whilst crossing your fingers and your new legs that the people in that environment will understand you and give back. And I don't think that's the case. I think you do delight in service, you enjoy being of service in some senses, but I don't know that you receive any of that back. I don't think you gain back half the compassion that you give. And I think actually somebody is potentially taking advantage of you. Because in the original Little Mermaid, it doesn't end well. It's sort of an over-sacrifice and then a transitioning, or my brain wants to say transubstantiation, into something completely different, away from everything that was associated with the mermaid. You know, she becomes one of the sisters of the air, which is a real mixed bag, because it's like, it's beautiful and she sort of ascends to being an angel, but at the cost of everybody she knew, the environment that she loved, and her literal form, right? That might resonate for some of you. You might, part of me covering up might be that you've been like me, where you've had bodily issues come in because of overgiving, and you're finding it difficult to sort of backtrack and get back to health because of the way that you've prioritized other people for such a long time. So, breathe with me. We can do this. Page of Cups is the other way. This might be a literal child reliant on you, or again a vulnerable figure, an innocent figure, somebody you're working with. It could be that you work with animals, with this rabbit here. Could be that you work with somebody who looks like a rabbit and acts like a child, and boy do I know that one. But again, there's like an extra weight of taking care of somebody who perhaps can't communicate as efficiently for themselves, because a page is about communication, it's very air-based, but this is a very infantilized card. So it's that, like, you are speaking for them, but actually your own voice was given up long ago. Damn, I didn't expect this one to go so deep. I'm so sorry. This is like really harsh and triggering. So present me with the two options. What are the outcomes with staying and going? Where's going? Where's going? Give me going. There's some resistance to going. Do you want to just leap out? Thank you. Yeah, thought so. I sense you're finding this a little difficult. Death reversed. Again, I sense you're finding this a little difficult. I think that's just an optional extra because it's the only one that overturned. And Death reversed tells me the exact same thing that the deck just told me, which is that it's like, ooh, we fear change. We don't really want to do this moving on thing, even if it's absolutely necessary, because we might come to a breaking point. Okay, so Two of Cups in reverse is if you stay. Upright, that looks lovely, doesn't it? It looks like companionship and acceptance and cooperation and love, maybe even unconventional love that defies the odds, right? But when you turn it that way, well, you have to sit with what that means, and you have to sit with the loss of it, potentially. And if you go, the Eight of Coins, it's a very step-by-step process. And this story of the swans, the woman is weaving pentacles out of nettles, I believe, in the original tale. But it wouldn't be pentacles in the folk tale. It would be, I think she like weaves. Her brothers are transformed into birds, and she picks nettles with her bare hands, which obviously stings like. And and weaves them into shirts. So she's literally making a hair shirt, right? The ultimate kind of sacrificial, too much service type energy. But she makes these shirts because when she puts them on the swans or on the transformed birds, depending on which country you're reading this in, the swans transform back into men and her brothers are restored to her, right? So she does all of this out of love. But it's a really painful experience. So it's not really clear which is the better choice, if I'm honest, because you've got a situation where a collaboration or a friendship or a deep communion with someone feels truly blocked by the fact that you are overburdened at the moment. And maybe you can't express yourself in a sort of LGBTQ++ way because that's what's on that card as well. That might be to do with your work environment. But then on the other hand, you've got a process of restoration as to what came before. So if this was the Little Mermaid, that'd be back to the underwater kingdom instead of to the Sisters of the Air. But that process itself is potentially a really difficult one, really painful one. I mean, I would say that might be the better option, but this is indicating that it's quite toughy. It's quite, I mean, I wouldn't want to weave shirts out of nettles, I don't know about you. I'm getting an image from a book of fairy tales that I had that's a different story, but it's still about swans. Swans, don't they infamously mate for life as well? So that might be relevant. It's like you've sort of attached yourself to someone for life and they might not be giving back. But the image I'm getting is of this beautiful woman with golden hair, but in the book it's yellow, and I had this book as a kid. There's so much childhood stuff coming up in this, can't even tell you. Kids are really relevant, right? Her hair is bright yellow, painted in these beautiful illustrations. Wish I could remember the illustrator, I can't see it right now. And I, as a kid, I had golden hair, right? It was not dissimilar to this, but a bit warmer. And I wanted yellow. When people said the princess had golden hair, I thought of that picture and I was like, yellow hair. Yellow hair. And then I dyed my hair yellow recently, right? A sort of orangey yellow, like a ochreish. Yeah, and it was too hard to maintain. It was like I couldn't keep the yellow at its full saturation because I had too much else going on. So I couldn't be the princess with yellow hair. And if you've been around on this channel, you know my hair changes a lot, right? But there's something to that of like having this idealized version of self, but you can't maintain it with all these other things going on. You can't keep it yellow. So then you end up looking sort of inside skin of a banana and in patches, and it's just not good. And then you have to go blonde. It's sort of, there's something here that you wanted, that your innocent self, that your star self, the restoration of you wanted very deeply. And you can still have it, but only if you drop this other shit. Only if you make sure that you build your lifestyle around it. I'm not suggesting you build a lifestyle around your hair colour. That's not what I'm saying with this example. What I'm saying is that I realised it wasn't the colour for me because it needed, surprisingly, quite a bit of maintenance. And I'm a low maintenance gal at the minute because of the amount of stuff I have on. And there's a similar thing here of like, if you truly wanted to be the princess with the yellow hair rather than golden, rather than any other colour, and I don't mean to be like racially significant and problematic with that either, it's just the way that fairy tale books were when I was growing up, because I'm old. So unfortunately that's the analogy, but if you wanted to be a certain way, to look a certain way, to move through life in a certain way that might be considered quite unusual by other people, that's only going to be facilitated by you adjusting all these burdens to suit. And that might mean leaving, yes. That might mean doing something else. I'm also, with the yellow hair, I'm now getting Cyndi Lauper, and I'm seeing the album cover for She's So Unusual. So again, this was a choice. Whether or not you identify as a she, this was something you wanted to do that was outside of the norm. And it's like, you haven't forgotten what it is, so why aren't you doing it? And your ancestors are miffed. And you could have done it, but there's too many people expecting stuff of you, or there's too much of a burden in one area where your natural capacity for service in a good way, in the upright, is being overused and inverted again. Let's have a look what it is when it's inverted, actually. The shadow is using the lack of money as an excuse not to move forward with life. So maybe this, whatever it is, puts you in a perilous financial position as well. Or maybe you took it for the money and now you're realising you can't overgive to it forever. Just off the back of that Cyndi Lauper reference that was a channel, She's So Unusual is in my head, but also what I'm hearing is from another album. There's a song by Cyndi when she was in a non-yellow hair era, because I love all Cyndi's eras. And the lyrics are, she's just a product of misery. I don't want to live like that. So I feel like you've almost become a product of misery. Check that song out if you haven't. It's a bit dated, but I think what she's singing about will come through. And again, Cyndi belts it, right? Whether you like her music or not, she's got one of the strongest voices for one of the tiniest little bodies that looks very unassuming and has this squeaky speaking voice and is very sort of like Harley Quinn energy. And then when she sings, it's like, woof, you know? And I think that is an indication in this Little Mermaid analogy of like, you had all this power to express yourself in a very, oh God, just a really rich way, just like a sumptuous self-expression. And it's sort of being diminished because you gave, and that was correct. It was correct to give, but then you overgave, you surpassed that, you took on too much. We've got a 2 of Wands again, so it's like choices, planning. That might be indicative actually that if you do leave this situation, you need to plan really meticulously what's next before you kind of take the leap. And I know at least one of you is a private client that I've said that to recently regarding should I stay, should I go with a job situation, right? So hi if you're here. 9 again, Wands, 9 of Wands. Which again is like overburdened, but ooh, okay. It's also injury. It's taking on so much that the body suffers. I don't like saying this in readings because I don't like to make, well, firstly I don't make predictions, but I also don't like to involve health for legal reasons. Or for reasons of like my own experience as a disabled person where like a diagnosis is a curse, right? So you start to believe something and then you become that thing. There's all sorts of ethical stuff involved in why I don't like saying this, but the body is a reflection of how we're taking care of ourselves. And if how you're taking care of yourself emotionally is at crisis point, what do you think is going to happen with your body? Speaking as a stroke survivor who did that, right? And I don't know whether you can gather, but I'm not that old. I'm not that infirm, or at least not in that way. I wasn't really predisposed, but I just did too much. And I was too many things to too many people, and my unique physiology decided to turn that into something absolutely catastrophic that meant my familial situation ended, my career ended, all my relationships changed, because when you have a stroke, friends do kind of drop off. Sad as it is, they do. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen to you. I want to make that very explicit for ethical reasons. But what I am saying is that there is a warning, take heed, in this reading, that if you continue to overgive without making progress towards moving forward, even if that progress is just planning your next move, what might happen is that you get ill or have a health crisis of some kind, or that the body is overburdened in some way. Or if you work with other bodies, particularly disabled bodies or vulnerable bodies, it might be that you are reduced in your capacity to actually deal with that. Because the 9 of Wands in many decks is about injury, or about having to take time out of fighting your battles to recuperate. So this, for some of you, this could literally be a sports injury. I think in this example about someone I know who overburdened himself so much in the gym to kind of make up for his work life, that he literally like burst and had to have surgery because he kind of strained something and had like a, anyway, it wasn't good, put it that way. He's all right. But it's that sort of thing where it's like, I'm just going to ignore that this is all going on because I don't want to deal with it specifically today because I'm tired, and I'm going to power through this other thing that takes my mind off it, and then whoop, accidents happen, right? And again, I'm not predicting an accident. I don't predict on this channel. I offer you thought experiments with which to make useful decisions, empowered about your own life. But what I am suggesting is that if you don't make some of those decisions with regard to everything that we've been speaking about, it might be your body that suffers in major or minor ways, right? And if you already have anything like a condition that you manage, or like immunity issues or stamina issues like I do, like, you know, archetypally, you know the effect of all this. You know what that's going to do. And if you've been having health issues, and that's part of what brought you to me, then look into like metaphysically what those things tend to represent and what that can feed back to you about the way to move forward. I'm really sorry I can't get more specific than that, considering the gravity of that kind of a statement. And I hope that I haven't scared anyone, because I'm not saying this will happen. I'm saying this is your intel to prevent it happening, because then you can act today and you can change things, right? But yeah, I think I'm going to have to leave it there in that sense, because this is a really general reading, and if I get more specific, I'll scare some people, I'll be irrelevant for others. And you kind of know really that you have to leave some of this stuff behind. You kind of know that you have to mediate the amount of service that you give, and in what sense and with whom. And I think whatever has resonated most for you in what I've said, you know that that's your place to make a change, and you kind of know what that change looks like, right? So I would say go forward with that, right? And be well. And if you want to book with me, it feels really unethical to even leave from something like that and say it, but if you want to book with me for more specificity on how you might manage those things, again, Etsy link below. And that, you know, I do kind of chakra checkpoint readings where we take a look through the whole body and the whole, you know, inner and outer, and we see how everything is coming into relationship and what we can do about each thing. I also do career readings. I also do relationship readings of many varieties, including twin flame stuff. And I do kind of decision makers, self-empowerment stuff, boundary setting stuff, all of that. Self-concept stuff that might be helpful. You do you. But I feel like if you don't come to me, and that's fine, and that's why my free content's here, certainly sit with yourself on everything that I've said. Maybe play some bits of the reading back and take some notes, or have a further think about stuff. Meditate if you're a meditator. Get in touch with those ancestors and really evaluate where it is that you want to be in a few years with this, and like how much the benefit to others is costing to you, because your query has been answered. Right? And the universe's query to you again is, are you receiving payment for what you're giving out? And I think the answer is no. If you found me useful, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. I'm sorry for leaving it on such a bum note. Hopefully there will be cheery readings in the reading playlist for you, and I will see you in the next keyword. Take care of yourself.